friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. No, I honestly don't think that this title is a clickbait title. I honestly believe it is 100% fact. And I'm fairly convinced that if you'll stick with me through this video, and it probably will be a long one, you'll be convinced that I am, in fact, a genetic defect. I have been putting this video off for years, thinking that I would like to put this video out, but I was afraid of all the kickback, pushback, name calling, etc. that I might get. So basically, I wanted to wait until I had established some credibility with you, and that you might understand that when I say something, I mean something, and I don't lie about things. I just try to tell the truth and tell it like it is. But now that I've established some credibility with you, I figured I might as well take this opportunity to destroy it. Pardon me too, I've been sick all week, maybe getting over it. That's part of the genetic defect that we'll probably touch on too. You'll be amazed how many things we're going to discuss here that I think are somewhat of a genetic issue. Now, let me just be the first one to tell you up front that I am not at all poking fun at anybody with real serious genetic problems. If I could wipe out anything in the world, the very first thing I would wipe out would be having children born with defects and genetic issues. That would be the very first thing I'd do. So this is not to make light of any of that type of thing, but I still think that what I'm talking about here is genetic issues. It just so happens that mine are weird, more like anomalies, strange things, not exactly life-threatening, although some are borderline. I think you're going to find this kind of funny, interesting, hopefully entertaining, and etc. I really wasn't going to share this with you until just about a week ago. Michael Wilson came into my shop. He's from Plano, Texas, and we had a nice long discussion that morning, and it kind of went into early afternoon even. And he convinced me that maybe I should just go ahead and put this video out, because I did confide in him and explain that I had been thinking about doing this. One of the comments that I made in one of my videos a while back was kind of a foreshadowing of this video. If you recall, in the house tour video, I made the comment that I don't eat vegetables at all. And a lot of people instantly jumped on that and wanted to know what I meant by that. Well, in this video, you'll find out what I meant by that. But there's a lot of additional issues. I've got a list here. I'll just talk about, there's 5 or 6 things, main topics. One of them is I have this thing they call paradoxical reaction to lots of things. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about my blood type. We'll talk about, you've already heard me talk a lot about my color blindness, but there's some additional information that I think you'll find interesting. We'll take a few little side trips down a few paths on a lot of these topics, actually. So this will probably be a long video. Maybe you want to go get your favorite beverage right now. We're going to talk about some muscle issues. We're going to talk about my hands and wrists again a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. We'll talk about my lungs. We'll talk the food issue, which is a pretty big issue, and we'll save that one for toward the end. Wrap this all up into one big package. I think you'll easily agree that, yes, in fact, you are a genetic defect. So where do we start? Well, I'm not exactly sure. It actually obviously started when I was born. And we will go back to a certain part of that, especially when we get into the food thing. But let's just talk quickly about paradoxical reaction first. I have always thought that I reacted differently to a lot of treatments and things that, work for people that would be, they'd be exactly opposite with me. And, I couldn't explain it, but the doctors have told me, and wouldn't you know, some of my grandkids have this as well, that you give me medicine and it does something exactly opposite than it would do for you. It's not just medicines, but some things are very common, like caffeine. You know, everybody thinks it's crazy that I don't drink coffee. You know, I don't drink coffee, but there's a couple of reasons why I don't, and I'll talk to you about that later too. They think it's just, you know, crazy that I can't, you know, that I don't need coffee to get me going in the morning. Well, I definitely don't. As a matter of fact, caffeine makes me crazy sleepy. In other words, you know, like at lunchtime, I'll go in and have a soda and it's caffeine. And instantly I'm ready to take a nap. I mean, and at night, see, I was on a caffeine-free diet for a while because of, I had an ear disease called Meniere's disease. I lost a lot of hearing in my left ear. And they said caffeine was one of the things that aggravate that. So they took me off of caffeine for over a year, and I didn't drink caffeine at all during that time. Well, guess what? I almost never slept during that time. I'm not kidding when I say I almost never slept. I'm talking like I would sleep maybe 2 hours at the maximum, and then I'd be up for 3 to 4 hours and maybe get another hour's sleep just before dawn or something like that. And that was about it. That's all the sleep I was getting for like a full year. I finally started figuring out that the medicines they had me on for that Meniere's disease were really affecting my health big time. Just all kinds of problems. So I went off of the medicine, and then I said, I'm going to go back to caffeine too. Heck with them. The first night I drank a Pepsi before I went to bed, I slept 8 hours straight, didn't wake up once. The next night I drank a Pepsi, I slept 7 hours straight, didn't wake up once. As long as I drink caffeine before I go to bed, I can sleep. But if I don't, I cannot sleep. That's just the truth. And it's just a fact. I mean, you can say what you want, but it's the truth. I mean, for a solid year, I didn't sleep at all. I mean, I really didn't. You know, people think, oh, you have to get more sleep than I'm telling you, I didn't. I didn't get 3 hours a night, 4 hours a night was the maximum I was getting for that whole year. So the paradoxical reaction is just simply that you get an opposite reaction to what the doctors expect. And my one grandson, you saw Trinian in the video just recently where I fixed the plastic toy. Well, his little brother, Leighton, has paradoxical reflex too, and the doctors have already talked about that with him. Some of these things were passed to my children, not very many of them, fortunately, but a few of them have been dispersed among my grandchildren, and so we're going to talk about those as we get into it. Okay, the second thing I wanted to talk to you about, and we're building here, you know, these are the small items, if you will, and it gets bigger, so hopefully you'll think it gets better here. The next thing is my blood type. Well, I didn't know what type of blood I had. My mother was in the hospital when I was young. I say young, I was late teens, early 20s. Don't remember my age. And she needed blood transfusions, and they were asking family members to go give blood on her behalf. So I went to the hospital and, you know, sat down, rolled up my sleeve. The little girl was probably about my age that was checking my blood, and apparently fairly new at it. And she, you know, sticks me with the thing for the test or whatever, because I told her I don't know what my blood type was, so she had to test my blood type first thing. She goes, oh, you got like A negative, and then she gets a little excited with that. And I asked her, I said, well, is that rare? And she goes, well, I don't know yet. We're still testing. I'm not through testing here yet, but let me just do a little more testing. And so she does the next test, and she goes, oh my gosh, you've got AB negative. And she gets all excited. I mean, like really did get excited. I'm not kidding about that. She gets up and she takes out running down the hall, and she's yelling to her, you know, I guess the head nurse or whatever, he's got AB negative, he's got AB negative. And so anyway, they made a big deal out of it. Whether it's a big deal or not, I don't know, but they made a big deal out of it. And they put me on a call list in case they needed me for whatever reason. You never have just one problem. So not only is my mother having all these, you know, operations and things in the hospital, near death actually, she got okay, but anyway, it was a bad deal. But wouldn't you know that when I get home from just giving blood, I mean like 30 minutes before that, I had just been in the chair giving blood. I get home and my dad is tunneling under their house. They have a slab floor like I have presently, and he has to tunnel 20 feet back under the house to fix a problem with their water system, and because they run a private well. It was a major deal. And of course, he's worried himself to death with my mom and everything, and he's going crazy, so he needs help. So I grab a shovel and I crawl under the tunnel and I start digging. This story does have a point. So I'm under there digging. It's a very, very hot day. I'm sweating profusely, and I'm so far back under there I can't see a thing. I've got a flashlight with me and I'm just digging by the light of a flashlight. I'm under there at least 30 minutes digging, sweating my tail off. I come crawling out. My grandmother sees me and she immediately starts screaming. She's going, "Oh my gosh!" And she comes running towards me. "Are you okay?" And I have no idea what she's upset about. My t-shirt was solid red. Now keep in mind, 30 minutes before this, or 45 minutes before this, I had just given, a pint of blood. And she is upset big time. I mean, there isn't a place on my shirt except maybe my sleeves are still white. Everything else is red. Now I, just thought it was sweat pouring out of me. I didn't realize it was blood, And there's still more to the story, believe it or not. Apparently I had just cut myself under there on a sharp rock or something across my back, in a tight hole that we're crawling back through there, And anyway, that was not a huge problem, even though, I might have lost another half pint of blood. I don't know how much I lost there, but it was enough to turn the whole shirt red. Okay, so I get all cleaned up from that. Well, now it's about 2 hours later from the time I gave blood. I started getting really sick. I mean, really in bad shape. Nausea, throwing up, fever, I'm sick. So I have to go to bed, and I rested for several hours, and it went away. I was okay. Well, I didn't really know what happened there, other than I just figured, well, it's because I gave blood and then lost some more blood. Maybe I just overdid it. Okay, that's what I figured it was. Well, years go by. Someone else needs a blood transfusion, and it was probably my mom. Again, I honestly don't remember the second time what the occasion was. But I go back to the hospital and I do the same thing. They give me, they take out the blood, they give you your cookie and your orange juice, and I go home. Well, just about the same amount of time elapses, about 2 hours later, I get violently sick. I start throwing up and I just, sweating the whole bit. When I say I get sick, I mean really sick. I was not doing well at all. Well, this time I report this to my doctor, and my doctor, he didn't really go into any kind of detail about it, but he just said, "If I were you, I would never." And I mean, he says it like twice. He says, "No, I mean seriously, I would never give blood again if I were you." He says, "You were on the edge. You are on the edge there. Don't do it again." I said, okay. So I don't know what my issue is there with giving blood, but it's not a good one. I can tell you that for sure. Okay, well, that's my blood story. And I realize these first couple of things, the paradoxical reaction is probably something genetic. The blood thing is obviously somehow related to genetics. The next thing that we're going to go into is some of my physical characteristics. And one of them is, believe it or not, my legs, my leg muscles. Now, I am not an overly strong person. I mean, I can hold my own pretty much with just about anybody, anywhere, anytime. I was pretty good at baseball, pretty good at football, couldn't play basketball for nothing, but was pretty good at, most all sports, running especially, very good at running. That kind of plays into this genetic thing also. Climb hills like nobody's business. I mean, seriously, I don't know anybody that can climb a hill any better than me. I mean, I don't care how good you are at it, even climbing that mountain that we went on in Maine, I was seriously passing up the young people. I mean, there was 20-year-olds left and right, and I was just blowing right by them. It doesn't bother me to climb mountains and hills and things like that. You'll learn a little bit more about why that is. Part of that is my lungs. Part of it's my legs. When I was in high school, you keep in mind, this was back in the early 70s, they got this new cool thing. I mean, this was state of the art back then, universal gym. And they put this in the gymnasium, and they put it in a special room, in a special place, and they had everything all decked out for it. And they were very proud of it at the high school. And we more or less had to kind of, reserve time to even use it, that kind of thing. Even though even though your actual gym class often would work out on it or whatever. I could do the average on almost everything that just everybody else could do. Nothing spectacular until one apparatus. You know, you sit down on that machine and you take your legs and you push like this. I was just Joe Average on that. Couldn't do anything spectacular at all. Matter of fact, probably even below average. That was the pushing, where you just take your legs, you put your knees up and you push this way. You know, nothing spectacular, nothing above average at all. In fact, probably below average. But there was another leg exercise they did. And I'm off the charts on that one. Off the charts. And I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating at all. On the other exercise, you would take a bar and put it across your legs, right across here. And you would lift up, and that would pull a cable that would lift a bunch of weights and etc. So I'd be sitting down like this and lifting like this. And this chair that's got me pushed forward here doesn't let me do it, but I can lift my legs straight out like so. So on that particular exercise, I found that really easy to do. Nothing to it at all. And so, you know, whatever weight they had on there, I said, hey, we'll put some more on there. So they put on maybe another 100 pounds, you know, pick it up, no problem at all. Put on another 100 pounds, pick it up, no problem whatsoever. Not even straining hard, you know, just pick it right up. So then they put on the very maximum weight, whatever it was, and I honestly, seriously don't remember, but it was a lot of weight. It was probably 400 pounds at minimum. Pick it up, no problem at all. And nobody else, no one else that I know of at that school could even get sort of close to that. I mean, they couldn't even get close. And so people start telling the coach about this, and the coach comes over and he goes, oh, you can't do that. And I said, yes, I can, watch. So he put on the maximum weight himself. I lifted it right up. I said, Coach, not only can I lift that, but I bet you anything, if you sit on it, I can pick it up with you sitting on it. Now, he's another 200 pounds now, keep in mind. So there ain't no way. I mean, he's like that. He's in my face almost. He's like, there's no way you could do that. There's just no way. I said, sit on it and I'll show you. He sits down on this thing on top of, you know, he's actually sitting on the bar, I think it was, that I'm picking up. I pick it up and throw him right back in my lap. I mean, it was not a problem. That's with all the maximum weight and him sitting on it. I don't know. I didn't ever do anything to make my legs like that. They just are that way. And they are still that way to this day. I mean, I actually have, you can't see it, but if I can straighten my leg out, the muscles are really big on the tops of my legs. I don't know why, they just are. I didn't do anything to make it that way, they just are that way. I got no reason to tell you these things, guys. I'm not making it up. Nobody's gonna pay me any extra money by telling you these weird things about me. It just is what it is. Now, I don't know why that is. I have no clue, but I have exceptionally strong leg muscles in that area. Like I said, climbing hills and things, not a problem. Okay, well now we have to go into some additional aspects here. Now this is where it probably starts to get a little bit more interesting. Hopefully you're finding it interesting up to this point. I just want to stop here and pause and just say, God bless Mr. Burroughs. And you say, who is Mr. Burroughs? Well, he was the old curmudgeon professor at the high school. You'd think I'd remember this, but I don't. I can't remember if I had him in my junior year or it was my senior year. Kind of think it was my senior year, but I'm not really sure about that. Anyway, he was the biology professor, and he was your typical, stereotypical professor type. The mustache, the little round glasses type thing, and just the old bachelor type. Whether he was a bachelor or not, I don't know, but he just seemed like it. He just seemed like he'd be that type. That nothing in the world mattered to him except biology. You know what I mean? He was that kind of guy. Just a neat old guy. I really liked him. He was a neat old professor. He did all these things to test all these things about us. I think the first one he did was the color blindness. So I'll just tell you about that one now and we'll get that one out of the way. You've heard about my color blindness before. But then one day he walks with this chart, a big chart thing, and it had all these little circles. You know what I'm talking about, the little circles with the dots. And he lays it down, and instantly the kids are going, there's a 7, there's a 25, there's a 14, there's a 6, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, what are you looking at? I mean, I'm dumbfounded. I'm not like confused. I am blown away. Like, what are they looking at? What am I missing here? I'm not seeing something that they're talking about here. What is going on? I mean, your whole life, you believe what you see. I had no clue I was colorblind at this point. You know, I should have had clues, but I didn't. I think people have the impression that when you're born colorblind, that you see black and white only, you see no colors. Well, that's not true. You do see colors, or at least I would say most people see colors. There are some people that say they don't, but I kind of wonder about them. I kind of think they're stretching it a little bit. It's just that you don't see them correctly, apparently, and you don't see them in the right shades, and etc. and so on. It's just hard to explain. Colorblindness goes very deep, I think. I think it needs to be explored a lot more than it has been. I think there's various different kinds of color blindness, way more than they think there is. And I think it's not even that. I think there's the people that can quote unquote see full colors. I think there's huge differences in that as well. I really believe it. Okay, but I'm getting off side topics. So back to the charts. You tend to believe what you see. Well, I'm looking at this, and I swear to you folks, it's just like I'm looking at this carpet. They're looking at all those dots, and I'm seeing all the dots in this carpet, and I'm going, there ain't no numbers there. Nothing. It's just like looking at that carpet to me. This was a really big chart that he had. And then I see off on the corner or someplace on this chart, there were 2 numbers I could see. There was, and I don't remember the numbers, but like a 17 and a 12 or something. And I'm going, well, I can see those 2. That was the only 2 numbers I could see on the chart. Why could I see those 2 numbers? Well, that's the anti-cheating numbers, if you will. If you can't see those numbers, then you're lying. Well, I could see those 2 numbers, but those were the only 2 numbers on the whole table I could see. And those are the 2 numbers they put there to make sure you're not lying. Those are the ones that prove that you are, in fact, colorblind, because you can see those, but you can't see anything else. So I have no idea still how colorblind I am, although you might just immediately infer 100% because I didn't see any of them. Well, I did go to my eye doctor later, and I said, well, doctor, how colorblind am I? And he says, man, all I can tell you is you are profoundly colorblind. That's what he said. So that's all he said. I want to take some side tangents here with this colorblindness thing and tell you some stories. Some of it sad and not so good, and some of it funny. We'll start with the sad ones first so that, we can move into the funny stuff and end on a funny note. But, I remembered after this, as a child, I could remember all these things flashed back at me that I had never even thought about a second time before. And that was even when I was in kindergarten, I remember. People would say, hand me that black Crayola. And, I'd hand them one and they'd go, that's not black. Well, I thought it was black, and so I handed it to him. But it wasn't. And most of the time, that was the dark purple one, and it looked black to me. I couldn't tell the difference at all. I remember things like that. Then the parts that were much sadder than that was, I remember, as a child, getting literally beaten for doing the wrong thing, and it was all colorblind related. I remember at least on a couple of occasions, my dad would say, you go down there and you get that green hay and you feed that to the stallions, and you get that other hay and you feed that to the mares. Whenever there's a 50-50 chance of getting something right, there is a 99% chance I'm going to get it wrong. I mean, that's just the way it is in my whole life. It's just that way. It's been that way my whole life. And it's just a black and white truth. And sure enough, I'd get the wrong hay and I'd feed the wrong thing to the wrong animal. And my dad was not one to mix words. He didn't talk. He took action. And he would take a belt to me and beat me for that. And I mean, it's just the way it was. I've forgiven him for those things because he grew up in a very tough way. He was on his own from the time he was about 12 years old, had to make his own way through the world. So later I took a lot of psychology classes to get right in my head. And I understand why he did what he did. So I've forgiven him. But it was a lot of times things like that happen, and he just thought I was being stubborn and belligerent and not doing the thing because I didn't want to or whatever. He and I didn't get along that well to begin with. So that was one of those kind of deals. All right, so moving into the more funny stories. And I have told, I think, these stories before, but I just wanted to tell them, put them in this video because this is where they belong. Because I've been colorblind my whole life, and I never cared about fashion. I'm like the king of I don't care about fashion, trust me. Not only do I not buy my own clothes, my mom always bought them when I was, a kid, and then my wife has bought them since, because I could just care less. I really don't. I mean, if I have to go buy them, I'm buying cheapest blue jeans on sale, and that's good enough for me. And that's just the way it is. I could care less about clothes. But the bigger issue was that I, worked for AT&T, and so I needed decent clothes, office type apparel, suits and things. And my wife always picked all that stuff out because she obviously could tell colors, and she'd get stuff that coordinated and matched and all this. It was just normal for her to buy my clothes, and I never cared anything about it, and I just wore whatever she laid out. Well, one morning I, have a new white dress shirt there. I put it on and I go to work, and I think I get in the van and some lady goes, "Oh, I like that shirt." Well, I thought it was brand new, so she probably just thought it was a nice new shirt, and press collar, the whole bit, I don't think any more of it. Well, throughout the day, at least 2 or 3 times during the day, women would stop me and say, "Oh, I like that shirt." Well, I still didn't think too much of it. I thought, well, it's kind of weird. You don't usually get that comment on a white shirt, So I don't think too much of it. Well, that evening I get back in the van. A different lady says, "Oh, I like that shirt." I go, "All right, stop the van right now." I said, "What is it about this white dress shirt that everybody likes?" I said, "It's just a normal white dress shirt." And they go, "White? It's pink." I had no clue. I swear to you, I had no clue it was pink. I had no idea whatsoever. So obviously I go to my wife and read her the right hand when I got home. I wasn't mad or anything, but I was a little embarrassed and just, whatever. It was just funny. And the more time passed, the funnier it got. Well, the next really funny story about the color blindness, and this one I thought was hilarious. It was the fad, at least back then in the early 80s, that you wore these wingtip dress shoes, when you're working in the office like that. And all the men had wingtip dress shoes. I could care less, but that's what they had. So I thought, well, I'll give me a pair of those, might as well fit in. So I go to, I think it was Famous Bar downtown St. Louis. Didn't even really know where the men's shoes department was, but I got there and found them. And it was like, keep in mind, this is the early 80s. It was like $125 or something for this pair of dress shoes. And I'm like, $125? Gee whiz, it just seemed crazy high at the time. And that was a lot of money back then. I mean, that's probably like $250 now. So I thought, I'll look around, So on the way home, I got out of the van and I get in my car, and I knew I was going to drive by a little shoe store. So I drive by and I stop in there and I go back, and sure enough, they had the exact same pair of shoes. I mean, the exact same model. Everything was the same. $80. I went, $80? Wow, that's $40 cheaper or $45 cheaper, whatever it was. I go, that's awesome. So I take them up to the counter, and the little girl was probably 16, 18 years old, and she looks at the shoes, and then she kind of does this creepy, weird thing with her eyes, and she looks up at me like this, and she looks back down at them. She doesn't say nothing. She just gives me this weird stink eye thing. And then she checks me out, I pay her, and I go home. I tell my wife the story about the $125 pair at Famous and Bar, and then I stopped at so-and-so and bought them for only $80. So she says, "Well, they're nice shoes, but you won't wear them." I go, "What do you mean I won't wear them? I bought them to wear. Obviously, I'm going to wear them." She goes, "No, you won't wear them, trust me." I said, "Why is that?" She goes, "They're purple." There again, that black and purple thing, you know. That dark purple, it just looks black to me. Now, what's funny about the color blindness thing is if I get out in the very brightest light outside, you'd have a tough time fooling me on most colors. There's still a lot of them you would fool me on. I can see most colors, or at least guess pretty accurately on most colors out in the bright sunlight. Indoors like this, not so much. I can't tell many colors. Now, here's the side issue with color blindness that you may not know, or at least with my color blindness. Actually, this may not even be related to color blindness. I don't know, but I have always thought it was. And it turns out both of my brothers are colorblind, but they don't have this second issue. The second issue is night blindness. Now, when I tell you about being night blind, I'm not kidding. I mean, I am night freaking blind. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's easier to give you examples. One time we were in the truck, my brother, he's next in age to me. You haven't seen him on video. His name is Steve. And we were hunting, and my brother and my best friend, Gary, were in this truck. And Steve and Gary are going, look at all those deer in that field. Now, keep in mind it was dark. Look at all those deer in the field. He goes, there's got to be 30 deer out there. And they're all excited. And I'm looking out the window and I'm going, I don't even see the field, let alone the deer. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I seriously can't see outside the truck window. And they're seeing stuff that's out there 200 yards away. There's nothing out there. You know, I mean, it's like looking at a black wall. And it's right in front of your eyes. There's nothing there. I am profoundly night blind. Your instant reaction is, can you drive at night? Well, yeah, I actually drive, and I think I do fine at night. But the reason is, two reasons mainly. The more modern bright headlights, that helps a lot. But then they also have the white lines painted and the yellow lines, and I can see those good. And of course, any oncoming traffic, I can see those lights coming very well. I can see the lights fine, and I can see the white lines and things from the headlights, and I don't really feel like I have a problem driving at night. I really don't. I've never had an accident at night or anything driving, so I don't think that's an issue. But I am completely night blind. This is the truth. I swear to you, I'm not making this up. And you'll think, oh, you can't be this bad. I'm not kidding you, I'm this bad. I don't think I've shown this view from this camera before, but if you look out this door, here, and then there's that window door, that door goes to the outside. Keep in mind, my car is parked 5 steps, 10 steps from there. When I work here in the shop late at night, now keep in mind, we're out here in the middle of nowhere where there's no extra lights or anything. And I turn out the lights inside here and I walk out there. And especially when I first walk out, because my eyes are used to the bright lights in here, I can't see anything. And more than one time, I have been out there trying to find my car and I can't find it. And I walk all the way across the parking lot and I'll finally feel grass. And I'm out there in the pasture. I don't even know where I'm at. I can't feel it. I can't tell where I'm at. You lose all orientation. When you are that blind, dark blindness, you can't tell where you are. If you've ever been in a cave and they turn the light off, it's that dark. I mean, like there's nothing. You could swing an axe in front of my face and I would never know it. It's that blind. One funny story is, you saw my house tour and how I built that large bathroom for my wife and myself, and it's a big U-shaped bathroom. Well, I'm at my end of the bathroom, so I walk through her part, and I'm thinking I'm going to walk straight out the side door there. It was after dark, all the lights were off. This was just 2 days after I finished this bathroom. I mean, it was like brand new bathroom. Really wasn't too used to it yet, but I'm apparently walking way too fast for as night blind as I am. I thought for sure the door was open. Now keep in mind the door is painted white, so you'd think if the lights are off, you'd think you could see a white door, right? No. I walk right straight into that door, kick a hole right through the brand new door. I mean, right through it. My knee went right straight through it because I hit it hard. Had no clue the door was there, or it was, that's how blind I am. I mean, you just can't overemphasize how night blind I am, which makes the color blindness thing at night, or in the dark room or whatever, all the dark colors, all the colors just blend together. They're just one color. So that's why I have additional complications with the color blindness. Okay, all right. I think that's the whole thing on the color blindness. We won't be talking about that anymore in this video. Going back to Mr. Velos. One day he decides to test our lung capacity. He brings in all of these apparati. He brings in several bowls, jugs of water, I don't know, tubing, whatever. He brings in all kinds of stuff. He sits it up on this central table. We all gather around. He, gives this test to maybe a girl, and she blows through this thing, and, she moves X amount of water. Well, then, of course, the next boy, he has to outdo her, and he blows, X amount of water. But he beats her, of course. And, it was kind of like a competition. And then the big football players, they get up there, and then they do 2 bowls of water or whatever. Well, when it became my turn, and I'm not exaggerating here, folks. I'm just telling you like it is. Again, I have no reason to tell you any other thing. Whatever the maximum that had been blown up to that point, which I think was about 2 bowls of water, I swear to you, I did 4 bowls. I doubled what their maximum was. I mean, completely doubled it. It wasn't even hard. And I just have gigantic lungs, which is another reason I can walk up these hills. And that's another reason I could always run really well. Now, you would think, well, then why wasn't I famous in running? Well, I should have been. I probably should have been an Olympic star in running. I probably should have been. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I could always outdo anybody in running. I almost never met anybody I couldn't outrun when I was younger. And I always had the school records, and for that. But I was never on any of the school teams. And the reason was my parents just were old school country, and all they wanted me to do was work. When I got home from school, I went to work, And it's just the truth. That's just the way I grew up. I probably could have been a baseball star. I was very good at baseball. I probably could have been, a track star. And even on the baseball team, our high school team was the state champions for several years. Lafayette High School in Missouri was very good high school for baseball, well known all over the state. In my senior year now, keep in mind, I had never tried out for the baseball team. And in my senior year, I was good enough to make first string shortstop. Now, did I play that position? No, because my dad found out about it and he put me to work. That's the truth. I didn't even buy the uniform because, what was the point? And that's just the way it was, the way I grew up. And, it was unfortunate. If I had known then what I know now, I would have gotten scholarships and all kinds of stuff, and it just didn't work out like that. So it's sad in a lot of ways because it really was a missed opportunity. And I am pretty positive you would have known me through track or some other sport had it not been for that. And again, it's just the genetic defect thing. I mean, it was nothing that I did. It's just the way I was born. I guess the story that goes along with the lungs, 2 stories. Number one is many occasions I brought youngsters out here to kind of mentor them into hunting and fishing and that kind of thing. Like maybe 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. And we maybe hear a turkey up on the ridge, and hear a turkey gobbling. So we say, we're hunting turkey, let's go, So we take off up this hill, and I'm just buzzing up this hill. And these 14, 15-year-old kids are going, wait up, wait up, wait up. I can't get my breath. Wait up. And here I am. This was back when I was in my 50s, I guess you'd say. And no problem for me, but it was a problem for them. And then where the lung thing really showed up was when we were out in the mountains in Wyoming. And we were at Yellowstone. And I think we were at an elevation of around, I think 8,000 to 9,000 feet, somewhere like that. I don't remember the exact elevation. But anyway, one of the signs said 600 feet vertical below us, there was these waterfalls, 600 vertical feet. And you had to walk literally miles of switchback trails to get down there. I mean, it was a long walk each way and back and forth and back and forth. And they had benches all along these trails where people were just sitting down to catch their breath because of the thin air. Well, nobody in our group wanted to go down there. And I said, well, I'm going down there. I'm going to take a picture, you know. So I take off walking down there. I walked the whole thing all the way down, 600 vertical feet, never sat down once, never got winded, snapped my 3 pictures, turned around, walked the 600 feet vertical straight back up to the top. Didn't even sit down once. Didn't take a drink of water. Didn't need it. Didn't bother me. You know, I mean, call it what you want, but I was in my 50s when I did that, and it was not a problem. You know, again, I've got no reason to tell you that other than it's true, you know. It's just a weird phenomenon, and I'm sure it's related to the size of my lungs. And then, of course, you've heard me talk about my hands and maybe my wrists, but for sure my hands, and they are gigantic. My one granddaughter, my second granddaughter to be born, the very first minute that I saw her, the first thing I said was, wow, she's got my hands. And I'm not kidding. That was the first thing I saw her hands, and I went, she's got my hands. My gosh. I mean, for a baby, she just had gigantic hands. Sure enough, she did. When she was 12 years old, she could palm a basketball. The coach on the team could not palm a basketball. Now, that's a male coach, too, by the way. And he could not palm the basketball, but she could palm the basketball. And she'd be just standing there holding the basketball, you know, and he'd be getting mad at her because he couldn't do it. She's a very good basketball player, by the way. Her name is Mary Ellen, and she's just a superstar on the basketball team. She really is. But, you know, I could palm a basketball when I was like that age, too, 12 years old or... All I can tell you about the size of my hands is, seriously, walk up to a piano and try to press down 13 white keys. Don't count the black ones, just the white ones. If you can do that, then you'll know how big my hands are. They're not big, thick like this and heavy like a lot of men's hands. In fact, they're skinny. They're not thick like that or big that way. They're just long fingers. I just want to be clear about that. They're not extra strong necessarily, although they're pretty strong. But they're nothing like a lot of men's hands. I mean, those big bear hands that people have, you know, they're not like that. They're just big in terms of size that way. Then on this other side of that is my wrists are like little girl wrists. I mean, seriously, they're tiny. So once I get through the sound hole of a guitar, I got no problem with my wrist. It fits through there, no problem. But it's the big hand that's hard to get through there. Most men's wrist watches, they just spin on my hand. You know, I have to have links taken out of them or something, you know, to wear a standard stretch band wristwatch. Okay, well, now for the big one. Here it comes. God bless Mr. Burroughs again. He walked into class one day. He was always late coming into the class. We were always sitting down by the time he came in. It's just, you know, the old professor thing, you know, I guess. And he walked in and he didn't say a word. He was just a very quiet, kind of tall, thin guy. And he just walked around to everybody's, you know, desk, and he laid this little piece of paper. It was about this long and about as wide as your finger, maybe 3/4 of an inch wide and about this long. And he laid it on your desk. People are going to think it's litmus paper. This was not litmus paper. He laid it on everybody's desk, and then he didn't say a word, and he walks back up to the board, and he writes down all of our assignments, turns around, 5 minutes later, and he says, that piece of paper I put on your desk, put that in your mouth. And that's all he said. Didn't give no reason why or anything. Well, I didn't put it in my mouth. I just sat there and kind of looked, and everybody's got it in their mouth, and they're just sitting there kind of dumb looking, and they don't think nothing of it. And, he goes, can anybody taste that? Everybody says no, whatever. So he didn't say any more about it. I swear to you, he didn't. He just didn't say anything about it. And he just went on and started teaching whatever the lesson was for that day. 20 minutes later, he walks by my desk and he sees that piece of paper on my desk. And he goes, "That piece of paper doesn't look like you put it in your mouth. Did you put that in your mouth?" And I said, "No." He says, "Put it in your mouth." I said, "Oh, Mr. Burroughs, I don't want to." He says, "Put it in your mouth." Oh, okay. So I put it in my mouth and I went, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" And he's going, "You can't taste that." And I said, "Yes, I can." He goes, "You can't taste it." He says, he goes on and he says this. He says, "I've given this piece of paper to, every single class 7 hours a day for the last 30 years and not a single person could taste it." I said, "Well, I can taste it and it's terrible. What is it?" He goes, "If you can taste it, then you tell me, what does it taste like?" And I said, "Well, I honestly don't know what it tastes like. It tastes really weird." I said, "If I was guessing, I guess I'd say it tastes like sulfur or maybe rotten eggs. I don't know." I said, "It tastes terrible." And he's going, "Wow." He says, "I guess you can taste it, because they tell me that's what it's supposed to taste like." I hit it right on the head. I wasn't even sort of close. When he looked it up, it's what it said it was supposed to taste like. It said just like that. And I thought that was really funny, Well, it turns out that what I taste is chlorophyll. Now you see why I don't eat any vegetables. You can't taste chlorophyll. And when I say you, I mean like 99.999% of you cannot taste chlorophyll. It's incredibly rare. Now you're talking about a genetic defect. This is definitely a genetic defect. If everybody tasted food the way I taste it, nobody would grow a garden. There would be no reason for it. The only things you would grow would be fields of potatoes and corn and rice. And you say, "Well, those are vegetables." Well, they're starches. I can eat starches, but I cannot eat regular vegetables, period. We're going to get into this deeper because this is really weird. And this has a lot of sad stories connected with it. When I was born, my mother said they couldn't get me to eat anything. Back then in the 50s, they started babies on solid foods much earlier than they do today. Within just a month or two, they were putting little bits of food in your mouth, and everything they put in my mouth, I would spit out. They would try all kinds of baby foods, and I would spit it out. Everything. Everything. And all of it. I wouldn't keep any of it in my mouth. They would try potatoes. I would eat the potatoes. They would obviously milk, and I would drink the milk. All they could get me to eat for the longest time was milk and potatoes, period. That was it. Well, once I got teeth, then they tried me on meat, and I would eat meat. So it was meat, milk, and potatoes, and that was pretty much it. They took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, "He's just not hungry." This was back in the 50s, keep in mind, and they didn't know much about stuff like this, and they said, "He's just not hungry. He'll eat when he gets hungry. Don't worry about it." Well, I kept getting skinnier and skinnier. I was really a skinny baby, But I wouldn't eat, Well, as I get older and can understand language and things, my dad just thinks I'm a stubborn little kid. My dad, keep in mind how he was raised and how he grew up. He didn't know any better. I'm not making excuses for him, but he just seriously was an ignorant person that didn't know any better. He only had a 6th grade education, and just the way it was. And, he would make me sit at the table at night until 10 o'clock at night and then go to bed. We'd sit there we generally ate late anyway because he had a lawn service and he would come in late. So we might be having dinner at 7 in the evening. We'd sit down at 7 o'clock and I wouldn't eat what they were put in front of me, and I would go to bed at 10 o'clock, I would eat the meat or whatever else they had like that. Bread I would eat. It's far easier to tell you what I eat than what I don't eat. I eat meat, bread, cereals, starches, And then the family joke is, and this is really a family joke, and it's the sad thing is that it's 99% true. And that is, I only eat the 3 main food groups. And what are those food groups? Sugar, salt, and preservatives. Seriously, that's kind of what I eat. I can eat nuts, meat, sugar, salt, stuff like that. I like those tastes, but the rest of it don't go down these pipes. And you think, oh, you surely can eat a little salad here or there. You don't understand the situation. You cannot eat it. It's not like it's an option. You think, oh, well, you can man up and force it down. Well, I tried that a couple of times, and it don't work. You can't do it. It's impossible. And when I say impossible, I mean absolutely 100% impossible. And you think, oh, you can force it down. No, you can't. It's impossible. It would be just like me giving you a cup full of gas and say, drink this. You can man it down. Go ahead. Well, if you can, you're a better man than me. Because when gas gets in my mouth, and it's happened many times in my life on the farm when you're siphoning gas out of one thing into something else, you spit it out pretty fast. It's bad. And you can't like it no matter how hard you try. And that's the same way with chlorophyll. If you could taste it, it would be like trying to drink acetone. You'd be going, there ain't no way. I mean, you just can't do it. It's impossible. You can't do it. I mean, when you're an infant and you spit out 100% of everything they put in your mouth, not eating any of it, at that age, you don't make those decisions. You're not being picky. And why my dad, of course, couldn't understand that, I don't know, but he didn't. And I would sit at the table. I couldn't even tell you how many thousands of nights in my childhood that I sat at the table till bedtime and went to bed. Just a sad deal. And they would, every once in a while, he'd get so mad, he would just force me to eat something like that. And then I'd throw it up, and then he'd get so mad, he just, it was terrible. It was just horrible. I can't even tell you how bad that was. It was horrible. It really was. I have seen on a lot of YouTube videos, and I'm not going to name any names or anything, but I've seen different people say stuff and refer to the fact that they're a taster too. And then they'll make a asparagus smoothie or something and man it down. They'll force it down. You're not a taster. There ain't no freaking way. I mean, you might be picky, and there may, it's just like the color blindness. There could be various forms of being a taster. Trust me, whatever their various forms are, I've got the severest form of it. I can guarantee you that. That part I know for sure. So it may be like the color blindness. There may be different kinds of color blindness. There may be different kinds of tasters. So maybe I shouldn't judge these other people that say they're tasters. But seriously, if you're a taster like I'm a taster, you can't man it down. It ain't happening. And you'll think this is a dramatic statement, and you'll think I'm just saying it for the video. But my hand on the Bible, God is my witness. I promise you this is the way I feel about it. If somebody had a gun at my head right here and said, I'm pulling the trigger unless you eat that plate full of lettuce, I'd say, shoot. I mean, it's because there's no point in torturing yourself. I mean, like it's like torture. It'd be like trying to hold a flame on your hand. I mean, that's just torture to yourself. You can't do that. Sorry. I just say shoot. That's the truth of it. You can believe what you want to believe, but that's the truth of it. Fortunately, most of my kids and grandkids didn't get any of these genetic defects. My granddaughter got my hands. Unfortunately, Trinian got my taste. I hate that. Poor kid, he's just like me. He won't eat anything, and it's sad. It's just so sad. And the difference with him than me is, and it may just be because my parents were so forceful about it, is that he won't try anything. You can't hardly get him to try anything. Where I would try it, but once I tried it, then I wouldn't go back to it again. Yes, I did have to stop the video because it does bother me to talk about it. Of all the weirdness I have, the one thing I didn't want anybody to get was the taste. It's horrible to grow up that way. It truly is. And it's so out of the norm that you wouldn't recognize it as being a problem unless you have it. I mean, think about it. Every single family reunion, every single party, every single business deal, everything revolves around food. Everything does. You go out to dinner for a business meeting, you go out to this, you do that, and everybody thinks you're weird because of the way you eat and the way you have to order your food. The way I order my food is something like this. I'll have a cheeseburger. I want it plain. Just bread, meat, and cheese. Nothing else. And, you have to say it like that because, and they'll say, you don't want the pickles? No, please do not put the pickles on it. And this is the other thing about it, and you'll think I'm exaggerating, but I swear to you, I'm not exaggerating. You can lay one pickle on one hamburger, take it right back off, and I don't care if you have 100 of them there, I can taste the one you put it on. So once it's on there, it's kind of contaminated it, and it does not taste good at that point. And you think, how could it be like that? How could it possibly be that sensitive? Well, I apparently have a lot more taste buds than your average tongue. It's kind of like a dog can trail a rabbit across a yard just simply by the fact that he can smell where that rabbit went. Well, you and I can't do that. But I can taste like that. The faintest bit of it. People would always say at family reunions, oh, yeah, it has onions in it, but you can't taste them. You can't taste these. These are cooked in. Well, maybe you can't taste them, but I can. And onions are horrible. I mean, they're horrible. I don't even consider green vegetables or onions or any of that stuff food at all. I mean, it's not even food at all. It would be like trying to consider grass food. It's just not food. So, I hate it that Trinian got this. I really do. It's just horrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's not like the kind of diseases that some poor little children are born with, don't get me wrong, but it's not fun either because every single thing in your life revolves around food, and all the time, your whole life, you're making excuses why you don't do this or don't do that. Just a recent example. Last week, I get an email. A guy's going to come to my shop this coming week, and he says, don't even bother with lunch. I'll bring lunch. Well, instantly for me, I'm going like, oh, please don't bring lunch. Because it's embarrassing to have to say, no, I don't want your lunch. It's just that embarrassing. But it's the truth, and I can't do a thing about it. I hope that you understand and believe that I'm not telling any lies on any of these things. Everything I've told you is 100% true, to my knowledge, as best I understand it. I've got no reason whatsoever to have made up any of this stuff. I just happen to be a genetic defect, and that's all there is to it. Thank you for watching.